Hello, everybody. Welcome to a room in me and Prem's house. So really what had really happened was the cat's here screaming. In this episode, you will hear me and Prem talk about our opinions and commentary on the Michael Oher case. I did just want to point out that a lot of the stuff that we talked about and speculated upon has now been addressed by the Oher family attorneys. So there are some things that we probably will have to update within this video. We did make this video and record it before the lawyers had spoken out or before we knew about it. So for that reason, there has been some new information updated, and I encourage you all, as usual, to go and do your own research into the case. What follows next is just going to be commentary and opinion from me and Prem. Let's get into it. Thank you. Okay, like I was saying, me and Prem just spent, I don't even know how long, finally setting up this little, oh my God, y'all don't even want to know how much work this took. I know it doesn't look like it. I know it looks really effortless. I make it look real easy, but we just spent this whole time getting our little podcast corner of the house set up. We have these new mic stands. Ella wants to join. I don't know if this is how it's going to be permanently. Definitely it's not, because we're going to put curtains up and stuff. But I was like, I don't know, maybe we should try it out. And Prem's like, do you want to just record? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. So if you haven't met Prem before, I don't know how, but this is Prem, my fiance, and this is the corner of our house. And this is our cat, Ella Sue. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of stuff that I actually found on the Michael Oher case, or I don't know, how do you say his name? Oher?
I think so. I don't know.
Comment below how you say his name. But yeah, usually at nighttime or in the afternoon or the evening times, I just tell Prem all the things I found that day. And a lot of times I'm telling him stuff a lot earlier than I tell y'all, because I'm live in this house and sometimes you just got to find stuff or whatever first or whatever. And sometimes you just can't make a video about it. So I thought today, as our first little intro podcast situation, it's kind of like a podcast.
I don't know what it is, but we'll figure it out as we go along. It might be a podcast, live stream. Who knows eventually what it'll end up being.
It would be easier to do live stream.
Yeah, a lot less work.
But people do not know how to act in the live stream sometimes. So then you have to make sure you have your defenses up, and the live chat is the only thing.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so I was going to tell Prem what I found today on the Michael Oher case. And it's stuff that I haven't seen anybody else talking about. So I have my little folder here. Okay. So you watched my video that I made yesterday.
Yeah, I did.
Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
So somebody had sent me, and she also sent it to Rabbit, I think, all the court documents from the case. And it's very interesting to me because the court record looks very incomplete. I mean, this conservatorship has technically been going on for 4 years longer than Brittany's did. Brittany's conservatorship had thousands, I think, maybe close to 2,000 or more filings in the case, and it already ended, and it started 4 years after. This whole entire case on the public docket only has 6.
Well, wouldn't Brittany's, because they were doing so much in Brittany's conservatorship, have a lot more filings than this one? It kind of seems like they set up the conservatorship, used it for whatever they wanted to use it for, but they weren't actively using it every day to control his life every day.
So that's what, before I get into my stuff, what's your, obviously this is just opinion and commentary. We don't know anything. There's 6 whole entire documents Prem hasn't even read. So obviously we don't know. This is just commentary, opinion, and conversation. But what do you you've seen a lot of high profile celebrity, whatever, guardianships, conservatorships at this point. Do you think you have a good radar at this point as to what's going on? What could be going on? What's your
I don't know exactly what's going on.
Gut feeling.
But my feeling is, again, when I first heard about it, the family came out and said they did it to adopt him. Instead of adopting him, the lawsuit also says that it was supposed to be adoption, but they said they had to do a conservatorship.
Ooh, talk about that. What you heard Christopher Melcher say yesterday.
So first when I heard about it, I was like, oh, maybe they adopted him. Instead of adopting him, they needed a conservatorship and everything else like that. But then I was watching Christopher Melcher and following him, and he brought up that in Tennessee, you can actually adopt someone that's over 18.
You can adopt an adult in Tennessee. You can adopt an adult. So here's me and Prem thinking, and probably some of y'all, well, he just turned 18 too soon. They just met him when he was 17. He turned 18. He was too old to adopt. That's not true. He was not too old to adopt. You can adopt someone. And there's this, let me see. Let me read it here because I don't want to have to do too much editing to this podcast.
Yeah, and with that, like...
There's this website, and it says, adult adoption in Tennessee. Tennessee law allows adult adoption. This often occurs in a situation such as, my aunt and uncle raised me, and I want to legally recognize them as my legal parents or something similar. So it's like, even though you're older than 18, if you want to legally recognize someone as your parents, you can still have them adopt you in Tennessee. And it seems that the Tuohys and or the Ohers did not do this route.
Yeah, and that's where it all turns upside down for me, right? Because if their whole argument is that they adopted him because he was going to go to college and it was better, and then he also wanted to be adopted by the family, and he alleges that this was supposed to be adoption, but they couldn't adopt him, so they got a conservatorship. And with the conservatorship, he basically lost a lot of his rights that he has under the law that every single one of us has. So it's pretty extreme, taking out a conservatorship on someone, especially someone healthy, that is capable and doing well by themselves. They don't need to be taken care of like that. So, that's not what conservatorships are meant for. So it was kind of weird. And their stories are just not lining up, why they got the conservatorship.
And there does seem to be a bit of like back and forth amongst folks out there about whether Michael knew that what was going on was called a conservatorship and stuff like that. I think he knew it was a conservatorship, but I think he didn't know fully what a conservatorship was. I don't know that that's the Tuohy's fault either. I'm not saying it's their fault because he was an adult at the time, but I could see him really trusting them too.
My question is, he was an adult at that time. Mm-hmm. If they were going to adopt him, they could have adopted him. And why did they need a conservatorship? What was the reason for him to give up his rights, give up, who can sign the contracts, give up who can negotiate on behalf of him? They could have been his agents.
Like it was
they could have done,
right?
They could have, it was enforced in terms, seems like that's how they got around the movie and
but like
the movie and the book.
He didn't mention that they negotiated his like NFL contracts for him or his scholarship with Ole Miss.
Well, we don't know what they did, what they didn't. It doesn't go into detail. For me, I think people are getting lost in the money aspect of it and, what should have been, could have been. I think it's going back to the original source and saying, why was there a conservatorship? Mm-hmm. If you could adopt legally someone that's over 18 and that's what they were trying to do, make him part of the family, why did he have to give up his rights?
What if they were to say, we didn't know that you could, we just assumed you couldn't adopt somebody over 18?
I think if you're hiring a lawyer, which they did, and again, that's where it's weird too, because it was a family member, or not a family member.
Family friend.
A family friend who was known as an aunt. So if you take that in and you actually have a lawyer, if they had done everything by themselves, they didn't have a lawyer, even then you would search, first thing you would search is adopting a child or adopting an adult.
18.
You wouldn't, conservatorships, as even they say, weren't even a mainstream thing. No one really spoke about conservatorships before Brittany. So that would be going out of your way. First thing anyone would ever look up is how to adopt someone. You wouldn't look up how to conserve someone.
Well, something I found out since my live stream yesterday, and I didn't check the truth of this or not. I don't know if this is true, but I did read it on like People or, one of the real news sources. And it said that the author or the person who put together or published the book, I think it was the author, the person who wrote the book, The Blind Side, was a friend or former classmate of Sean Toohey, the conservator dad, the fake adopted dad. So his friend or classmate basically is responsible for the Blind Side book being, put out.
And that's the other thing, I know the Tweeds are saying, we didn't know he was going to be such a big, star. We didn't know he was going to go to the NFL. How could we have predicted that?
Yeah. The conservatorship papers say that he has no way to financially support himself, and they are financially supporting him.
And again, they got the conservatorship in 2004. He graduates in 2005, and the book came out in 2006.
I believe the book came out no, I think he graduated in 2000.
He graduated in 2005?
5.
So the book came out in 2006?
There's no way he graduated high school in 2005. Because I graduated high school in 2008. And he was supposedly, because he was 2 years behind.
Yeah, so...
He's 37, I'm 32.
They adopted him in 04. Sense. He would have graduated in 05.
They didn't adopt him.
Well, they got a conservatorship over him in 2004.
December 2004.
So the book came out pretty close to them getting a conservatorship over them. So that destroys their whole argument of we didn't know what was going to happen. They already had a story.
Bit. Okay, so he starts playing sports at this fancy school in September 2003.
Yeah.
By 2006, a book is published.
I think it came out in 2006.
Let's look it up.
So that's where, they already knew, or again, in my opinion and my thought process, they kind of had an idea of this, hey, this kid who didn't have all the necessities. And again, I don't know how he's portrayed in the book, but in the movie, he's portrayed as someone who doesn't read and write properly, who has a hard time learning, and which now we found out isn't true. That wasn't a real portrayal.
Said that he had earlier in school, first grade, second grade, because he was in the foster care system and kind of put around from school to school, and he didn't have a steady home life. He wasn't able to acquire the education at school to, perform academically to the peers level. But it wasn't because he was inherently not capable. It was because of his situation. And by the time he got to college, he was on the dean's list.
Yeah, no, but the movie makes it seem like...
He's slow.
He's slow.
Yeah.
He can't comprehend, and he needed their help to even figure out school and everything. That's what the movie portrays. I don't know if that's what the book portrays, so...
Right, so the book was published September 2nd, 2006. So exactly 3 years after he started playing sports at that fancy school, a book had been published. 3 years exactly.
Yep, and within, 2005, about a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half, after they got a conservatorship, a book was written, and the book would take a little bit of time to write. So
and the book was written by the dad's colleague or friend.
Yeah, so it's just weird. I think the whole situation is weird, and I think what people have to concentrate on is why was there a conservatorship? Worry about the money later.
Have you seen any? Have you seen any reasons offered up by the family or the people why there was a conservatorship?
I think the dad came out, or a family spokesman came out and basically said the conservatorship was there because he was going to go to Ole Miss. The dad was a booster or had something to do with Ole Miss. About? So he had to adopt him in order to send him to that school. It's just all sounds weird. It doesn't make sense. And to me, it doesn't make sense why they would have to get a conservatorship. I keep on going back to the original question. Why a conservatorship? If they could have adopted him, why a conservatorship? Did they get a conservatorship over their other kids when they turned 18? Why did they have to negotiate his rights? Why did they have to take care of his medical stuff?
That goes into this timeline and even raises more questions. I'm going to make a whole video on this. I'm not planning on editing over the thing right now or anything, but I found today so one of the things I was looking at in these documents says that Michael's father, his paternal father, he passed away in 2004. So Michael Oher was in the system. He was in foster care and all that, but he knew exactly who his parents were. So his mom, I guess you were telling me actually he got taken away from his mom because there was some drugs and stuff involved.
I think I saw a interview with him where he said he was taken away at an early age.
Like 10 or 11 years old.
Around that age, maybe even a little bit younger, but he was taken away by the state. He did say that he grew up where everyone was on drugs and there was a lot of drugs around. So I'm assuming that the state probably took him away because of those reasons. It could be any other. I don't know exactly.
So what I was reading in the conservatorship documents says Michael's father passed away in 2004. It's interesting because when you put that into the timeline and together with the fact that we know that Michael's mom, his birth mother, Denise, I think her name is Oher, she petitioned to put Michael in the conservatorship as well. His mother and the Tuohys all were in support of it, and then he was also in support of it, and now he says he didn't fully know what a conservatorship was.
And if you go back then, who knew what a conservatorship was?
Who really knew?
The only people that knew what a conservatorship was the lawyers, the judges, and whoever was going to use the conservatorship for whatever reason they were going to use it. It wasn't like the word conservatorship was an everyday word that everyone knew what a conservatorship was. People are still confused about what a conservatorship is. You know, is it a conservatorship? Is it a guardianship? Does it take over your rights? Does it, medical, financial? People still don't know what a conservatorship is. So I wouldn't assume an 18-year-old to know what a conservatorship is. If I'm an 18-year-old, people that I consider family come and tell me, hey, this is the way we're going to adopt you and we have to do a conservatorship, I would be like, okay, cool. If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
Yeah, no, I find it completely believable.
So
that he didn't know what it was. Or maybe even that his birth mother didn't know what it was. Even possibly the Tuohys, but then I would arrive at the question you asked, which is then why? So, okay, so what I found today. So I was looking up who is Michael Oher's birth father, biological father, because he died apparently the same exact year that the conservatorship started. And I also know his birth mother did also petition or support the conservatorship. And so I'm like, well, did maybe that father passing have something to do with the conservatorship? Because here we are trying to figure out why they would do it. Because so far I have not heard a satisfactory answer. None of it really makes sense. So I would like to know the real reason that it satisfies me. You know what I mean? So I go on the newspaper archive and I type in, what had happened was I'm reading the conservatorship papers and there's this little footnote at the bottom. And the footnote at the bottom says, Michael Oher's birth name is Michael Jerome Williams Jr. So that tells me what his dad's name, his birth father's name is. And so I type in Michael Jerome Williams into this newspaper archive thing because I wanted to know how he died. So I typed in obituary. And it said that he had passed away, didn't say what from, in April 9th, 2004, in a regional medical center. That's what the obituary said.
So how do you know that's his father?
I don't. The newspaper was from Memphis, Tennessee, which is where Michael Oher is purported to be from, Jr., the Michael Oher. And then he died in 2004, April 9th, 2004. It was the only Michael Jerome Williams at all. And it didn't say senior either. It just said Michael Jerome Williams. But when I looked at his obituary, it said that he had about 4 kids, I think, 1 daughter and 3 sons. And none of them's names was Michael. One of them was named Jerome. So it looks like maybe it's not the same Michael Jerome Williams who died in 2004 in Memphis, Tennessee. But then again, I guess it's possible that the father had, 4 kids, but we know that Michael has said that he has 12. He's one of 12 children. So is that like his mom had all them kids, or is it like he's adding them? I don't really know. I really don't know. But the guy did die in 2004 in Memphis, Tennessee, and his name is Michael Jerome Williams, and I do need to do more research on it. But one thing I found interesting was he died April 9th, 2004, according to this obituary. And there was another article about a man named Michael Jerome Williams who was, quote, found dead on April 9th, 2004 in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm assuming those two Michael Williamses are the same Michael Williams. I'm assuming, because it's like, okay, you died in the same city on the same day and you have the same name. Maybe they did. But according to this other article I found, his body was found with a mysterious head injury. And it was like the homicide detective is on the case to figure out what happened to him with this head injury, because it's unclear. And then the next week it was like his obituary, and his obituary said he had died in the medical center. Again, this could not even be Michael Oher Sr. I mean, Michael Jerome Williams. This could be a totally different guy. But there's conflicting reports on how, like, where he passed away, how he died and stuff like that, even though it's the same date he apparently passed.
Yeah, and the good thing about this case, I think, is Michael Oher is allowed to talk. Mm-hmm. He is capable of talking. He's out there on a public tour. This will play out in the courts. He did make it public. He's making a public statement, talk to ESPN. So I think all those type of questions will come out. This isn't something where, hey, someone is trapped. They don't really have their rights to move around. They can't talk to media.
So what do you think the problem is in this case, if there is one?
What do you mean in terms of problem?
So one problem that doesn't exist is what you just said. He's not trapped. He's not caught, or that we know of. He doesn't seem like any of his movements are restricted. He's been married. He's seemingly been able to negotiate his own contracts with sports and stuff. So is there a setback? Is there something that you think is nefarious or off or unacceptable about this case?
I think the origins of why this conservatorship was started, what was the reasoning behind it, why did they have to get a conservatorship over him? Why didn't they get a conservatorship over their other kids?
What about the contracts with their kids and the fox?
And then to that, the next thing is, again, we don't know what Michael and the family agreed to. We got to give both of them benefit of doubt, and we got to wait until all the facts come out, what exactly happened with the negotiations of the contracts and everything. But from the initial reporting, what seems weird is the Tui's kids had a royalty deal with the movie where they were getting money from the movie. But Michael, who the whole story is based around, did not. Again, Michael was not really happy with the way he was portrayed in the movie. He's already come out even earlier and said that. He said that he would go into football locker rooms as a professional athlete, and people would think he wouldn't know how to read a playbook because the way he was portrayed in the movie.
That sucks.
He's a lot of people, including myself. Again, I should have looked into it. I shouldn't assume what a movie is, is portraying the true thing. But it's said based on real life or whatever it said. And I thought he's accomplished this while having
like a learning disability,
like a learning disability or whatever it was. I was even like, oh man, this is crazy that he's been able to accomplish so much. But it turns out that wasn't true. And he had to still, till this day, now it's changing, till this day, I would guess that majority of the people in the world, especially the ones that have seen that movie, would assume, hey, he doesn't know how to read and write. He's slow. He doesn't know, he needs a lot of help.
Remember. Now, I bet you everyone's rewatching it this week. I would have to rewatch it to like really remember how they, I definitely do have a vague outline of a memory that like they portray him as slow and like he doesn't do well in, grades wise or whatever.
It's good for the Tui's. This lawsuit, it might be bad for their reputation, but a lot of people are going to be watching.
They're getting their streaming royalties now,
so they'll get their few pennies of streaming royalties that they get. So there's that. And again, the other thing was, people are bringing up is, hey, this lawsuit was filed on the same day Michael released his book. Initially, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty bad. Why would he do that? But on the other hand, if he has been screwed over, if he has, been cheated or wrong things done, why not line it up with your book release?
In particular, like, his book is about his story, his name, and his likeness. And if he feels cheated, like, he didn't get the chance to really tell who he really is because of that movie and because he was not really, like, in his opinion, treated fairly or whatever, I could see how that could be like reclaiming your own name. Like, I'm releasing, because otherwise, I mean, nobody would care about that book. I wouldn't care about that book. No offense, Michael, if you watch this. But now I do, because now I want to hear what he has to say. Because now I realize that what I've been told was completely not, at least approved by him. He didn't approve of how he was portrayed. So now I would like to know what he has to say.
Yep. And the other thing is, he filed a lawsuit. He didn't just go to ESPN and say, hey, this was wrong with me. This is all going to go to discovery. This is going to go to court. A lot of things are going to come out. So if he just did this as a stunt, it's going to look really bad on him. So, he might have released the book and the lawsuit, filed a lawsuit at the same time for marketing reasons, for getting his story out. But at the end of the day, he did file a legitimate lawsuit to end his conservatorship. He's alleged some other things in there financially. So this is all going to come out in the court system. It's not like, oh, he's just saying it.
Yeah.
He actually filed court paperwork. So even if it was to promote his book, I say good for him. I think it's a phenomenal thing. I think it's a smart thing to do. Why not promote your book? Especially if there's been a movie made, there's been a book written, the movie's made hundreds of millions of dollars. And again, I know the Tweeds didn't get a huge chunk of that. They got a small little portion of it, as they say. But still, it's based on his life. It's
and they
around
continue
him.
to make money off of it, apparently.
He doesn't get to benefit at all. So why shouldn't he file the lawsuit and release his book at the same time?
I have not bothered by
so
him doing
I think
that.
It's actually good for him. He did it. Now he's just going to have to back it up in court, and we'll find out what the truth is. Because at the end of the day, as I say with any case, and you would agree, we can all assume stuff and we all take sides and everything else like that. But you really don't know what's the truth until the case goes to court. You can look at a few things, especially when everything's been kept in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, if it all happened out loud in public, then you do know the truth. It's easy to follow a public record. But this has not been very public until now.
And with conservatorships, you and I have talked about it. The problem with conservatorships is, one, they take away human rights from people, but everything is always hidden. Everything's always, because of medical reasons, we don't want to show it. Because it's high profile, we don't want to show it. Because people have money, they're celebrities, we don't want to show the world whatever it is. And that's where I completely disagree. I think conservatorships, if you're taking away someone's human rights, you're basically saying this person cannot take care of themselves. And you're using the public courts, the public dollars to go get control over someone's life. That should be very public. Because at this point, you're basically saying this person can't take care of themselves. And a lot of people have reasons where they can take advantage of someone in a conservatorship. They have a lot of conflicts of interest, especially when someone's giving up their rights. So if someone's giving up their rights and it's being done through use of public funds, a public court, that should be all open to the public so people can look at it. People can make sure.
I say the same thing. I mean, it should be 3 judges. It should be a panel.
It should be judges. There should be a jury. People should be able to check up on conservatorships. People should be able to see what's going on with the finances. People should be able to see what medical facilities people are being put into. All that should be in the public. Again, I believe in privacy. I think privacy is a great thing. But if you're saying someone cannot take care of themselves and you have to take their fundamental rights away.
You have to take their rights away. I think it needs to be a very, very public process.
It has to be a very public thing. Can you imagine if there were, court cases where someone's being put in prison, but no one can ever find out why they were put in prison, what was going on in the case. You couldn't request documents.
I mean, I kind of can imagine that, actually, now that I've been doing this for 3 years, but it's not how it should be.
That's not how it should be.
Yeah.
Because, again, we're not saying that judges are corrupt, but judges make wrong decisions.
Judges are just people. They're just humans.
They're just
Hate to
humans.
tell y'all.
They make wrong decisions sometimes.
Yes, they do.
So lawyers can make wrong decisions or not act in the best interest. So why do we just assume that should be in the private? If you're going to public court and you're trying to use the public system, it should all be open in the public. But especially when it comes to conservatorships. When it comes to conservatorships, you're taking away someone's fundamental rights away. It should be open to the whole world to see what's going on. So that way, nothing nefarious can go on. Someone's can't be cheated, taken advantage of, because people would be looking out for that. And if a person cannot take care of themselves and you have to take away their rights, at that point, what privacy do they have? Whoever's taking over, if it's someone appointed by the state, that person, are they really consenting to them? We don't know. So...
Oh, no, I mean, a lot of times they're not. Brittany did not consent to Sam Ingham.
And Sanging, so yeah, that's a perfect case. He had access to her records. He had access to
legal,
everything.
He had more access to Brittany's records than her.
And that's where it's like...
And she didn't consent.
So was her privacy really respected? No. And a lot of times these conservatorships, you're forcing someone to go to court. They're in a mental hospital. They're in a hold. They're in jail. So that person's not choosing to take themselves into public court. Someone else is. And if someone else is, then why not make it public?
It has to be public. There's just no other way around it.
And again, that's the biggest problem with conservatorships. They're not open. People don't get to look into them. And every time people yell, privacy, privacy, privacy. But if someone's losing their fundamental rights, then what privacy do they really have? Other people get to look into their life.
Right. Oh, you want to retain their privacy right from the public to be able to hold somebody accountable, but you don't want to retain their privacy right for somebody that they didn't want to look at their medical records, like a Lima Yevremovich type, for example?
Yeah, no.
Why does the privacy right only apply whenever the public is trying to hold people accountable?
Yeah, so... No, this will be an interesting case to follow, I think.
I'm getting a little sleepy. I've been working all day, but I'm glad that we were able to make our first little episode.
Yeah, no, again, this is just a trial. We'll see where the final product ends up. Just want to get something out. We don't even know what we're going to call it. What are we going to call this?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe people can leave comments.
What should we call it? I want it to be like, something about like our house, our corner, or something. I don't know. I have to see if I get a download during my Wim Hof breathing tomorrow.
Yeah, let's see. But people can leave in the comments if they think of something cool, something with our names, or
probably something with our names. Like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to. I don't really have any ideas right now.
Ella, you think of some ideas too?
Maybe Ella's Corner or something. Oh,
see?
She's meowing.
Oh, you're gonna.
Okay, that's all we really had for today. In the meantime, facts and defamation. Love you, Minnie. Goodbye.
Bye.